Welcome. I'm so glad that you decided to take this hybrid class on city and metro planning. This is going to be your first lesson. I will walk you through it, and this is really just an introduction to the profession of city planning, urban planning. Um, it is a career field, but go ahead. The learning objectives for this lesson is you, at the end of the module, you should be able to describe the need for planning in urban life, indicate the various concerns of urban planning, describe the role of planners in urban planning. A planner would be the profession, that is a job title, is to be an urban planner. You will be able to describe a professional organization related to this field and its functions in urban planning. I want you to be able to list some advantages and disadvantages of planning and list the skills needed to be a successful planner. So why do we even need planning? I mean, why is this a job? Why is this a class you're taking? Why is this the field? One reason is because we have problems. Cities are really complicated, and having all these different types of people living together in a city, having cities be this whole kind of ecosystem of economics, of culture, of social life, of politics. We need planners to try and help solve some of the problems we face in our communities. So just look at some of these kind of questions here. How can residents of a community have access to recreation, culture, schools, and shopping? If you live somewhere, how do you know you're going to live somewhere where you can get to work? You can have a school for you or your kids. You can have stores to go shopping at. You know, all of that requires a plan in how we build cities. And so your third bullet point down there, how can traffic flow without congestion? This idea that you can drive down a street without all kinds of craziness, this doesn't just happen, you need a plan for it. Can you ride your bike to work without getting run over by a car? Is your city a place that has bike paths? You need a plan to have cars and bicycles together. Um, and so think about houses. Are houses located next to these big, noisy, polluting manufacturing plants? Or do you see cities more where houses are kind of grouped in one place and then shops are grouped in another place and then these big industrial manufacturing plants are located somewhere else? And so really decisions on how to use land, whether it's going to be for a shopping district, whether land is going to be for a park, for businesses, for residential housing, decisions on how to use that land, they're interconnected and they're complex. So planning, like I said before, it is a profession and it is actually a formal and a distinct function of government. Okay, so a couple of the specific concerns of planning. It depends on where you live. Different cities, different towns are going to have different types of planning that they do. For example, one would be to shape the pattern of growth to achieve an ideal community. And that's kind of a fun thing to think about, an ideal community, and we'll talk more about that later in the semester. And you think about, like, maybe your city would be concerned with the location of facilities such as schools, these public facilities. Where to locate schools could be a priority. Planning could be concerned with preserving what's already there, especially with housing. We want to preserve housing, improve housing. Instead of building something new for new growth, it could be, the concern could be, how do we preserve and improve what we already have? A concern for another city might be economic development. They might be concerned with attracting new businesses. Another option would be to look at the environment to minimize the negative impacts on the environment, pollution, carbon emissions. I mean, the environment is, anytime you build something, you're going to have an impact on the environment. So maybe the concern would be, okay, well, we need to plan for growth. We need to have schools and transportation and places to live, but how do we do that without negatively impacting the environment? Improving roads is a concern with planning. Transportation planning is a whole subsection that we'll look at. What about making parks and recreation spaces? That could be another concern of planning, is instead of just having this man-made city, how are we going to plan to make sure that there's enough green space, some parks, some gardens, some community gardens, some recreation spaces? And these are actually just a few examples of the different types of things that urban planners might do. So who are the planners? Like I said, it's a profession, but they come from a variety of backgrounds. So urban studies is the major we have here at Dillard University. You could come from a background of urban studies and go into planning, but there's also people in biology, civil engineering, law, geography, architecture, real estate development, business. I mean, there's a lot of different backgrounds depending on what your specialty is, what topic you're concerned in, that you could end up being a planner. After you finish Dillard with your undergraduate degree, there are master's degree programs in planning. The MERP program, Master of Urban and Regional Planning, is a popular one. And then some colleges also have an MCP, the Master of City Planning. And one thing to know about the career path is most planners are employed by government. Most of your jobs in urban planning, you're going to work for a government, you're going to work for City Hall. Here in New Orleans, we have a city planning commission that's located downtown next to City Hall. There's a regional planning commission, and most of these are government jobs. But some planners are employed by private companies in the private sector. You could be a planning consultant, you could work for a land developer, you could work for a community group, more of a nonprofit group that is concerned with urban planning. And just kind of a fun fact, one of Michelle Obama's very first jobs was as an assistant commissioner of planning and development in Chicago. So it's a very popular, it's a good career path, I'd say. Okay, so a couple of the professional organizations. You should go look these up online. I'm going to have an assignment for you posted on Blackboard. But APA, the American Planning Association, is a big one that's concerned with planning. They publish journals, they lobby Congress, they take positions on court cases. The APA does have college student chapters. And so you as a Dillard student could look to joining the APA as a student. And the APA, there's also another kind of alphabet soup for you know, is the AICP, the American Institute of Certified Planners. So they certify planners, and then some jobs, like you go look for job postings to be a planner, some of them require that you have an AICP certification, that you're a certified planner. It's like you have different professions. This would be the one that certifies professional planners. And so myself and your Dillard professors, we are active in the UAA as a professional organization. That's the Urban Affairs Association. It's more broad than the APA, where the APA is specifically concerned with planning, urban planning. The Urban Affairs Association takes on a lot more different categories in urban studies. And just so you know, the median annual salary for an urban planner was $75,000. So keep that in the back of your mind after you graduate, that maybe you could be qualified for an urban planning job. And so what skills do planners need? Political smarts and good communication skills, which works out well because I think a lot of you are actually communication and political science majors. So those skills could help you in urban planning as well. You need to have the ability to understand the political environment around you, because planning and politics are intimately related. We can talk more about that in class. The ability to speak well in public and express an idea in order to persuade your audience, that's going to help you in planning. That's going to help you in almost any profession that has to do with communications, policy, public policy, is the ability to communicate what you want to say to an audience is a really important skill. So, and that involves both writing well and explaining things so that a bunch of different stakeholders would be able to understand them. So this semester, the main topics that we're going to cover is we're going to look at the little bit of history. Don't be too upset. A little bit of history. It'll be okay. The history of urbanization in the United States. We'll look at the history of planning, city planning in the U.S. We may get a chance to look at some of these legal and political frameworks, but we'll probably spend a lot of time on social issues in planning because I think that's pretty interesting. You know, because you plan a city for people. You can have all the greatest architecture that you want, but I really believe in the human element of cities, and urban planning can have consequences for humans if you're not kind of looking at the idea that the city is full of people. So I like social issues in planning. We'll also look at comprehensive planning, the comprehensive plan, the master plan. This is a tool that cities have, not all of them. Some of them have a comprehensive plan, so we'll look at that. We'll look at a little bit at land use planning tools. We will look at urban design, and in this course you'll be able to design your own city, so that'll be pretty fun. And then we're going to look at planning in other nations. We won't stay just inside the United States. We'll look a little bit outside of the US to see what planning is like in different countries. And that is it for the first lesson. I look forward to seeing you in class.